are you really good at what you do, but you end up doing a lot? And you have even more ideas that are floating around in your head that you want to get out and you're not quite sure how to get them all done? Join me as I share 3 tips of how to stay consistent and get everything done. And if you stay until the end, I'm going to throw in a bonus tip for you. So hello and welcome back. I am Rachel Charles and I teach overwhelmed professionals how to transition from their 9 to 5 without burnout. So when you're multi-talented, multifaceted, you might be in a full-time job and you're really good at your career, but there are other skills that you have and you also want to take that experience and do something else over here. It can get quite overwhelming and it can be quite difficult to follow a plan and remain consistent. It can also be quite difficult to figure out which one to focus on when there are so many different things that you can do. So the first way that you can maintain consistency is going to sound really obvious, but it's avoiding distractions. But the reason why I want to raise this and the reason why I say it sounds obvious is because, if you're not distracted, then, you can be consistent in what you're doing. However, distractions can disguise themselves. They show up in different guises. They come along in the guise of responsibilities, for example. So there may be things that come up and you don't realize that they're actually distractions, but it's things that are happening in your family, things that are happening for your health, things that are happening at work that's taking up your time and energy that you could be using in the things that you want to do to move your goals forward. Of course, it doesn't mean that you don't do those things, but you really need to be aware of the things that come up in the guise of responsibilities or things that only you can do, that you could actually delegate or weigh up whether or not you actually need to be involved in this. Another way that distractions can show up in the form of a disguise are the people who come at you with good intentions, but they're actually going to knock you off course. You might have a plan to set up your business and you may have what looks like a secure 9 to 5, which you're really good at, but there will always be those people that come to you and ask you, why on earth would you ever want to put your time and energy into a business when you can just focus on your career? Those people mean well, but it's a distraction when you now have to summon up the reason why you have to do it. And sometimes do feel that you have to give them an explanation. Obviously, not everybody's going to get that from you, but there will always be those people that are closest to you that you feel that you have to explain the reason why, because you know deep down that they are actually supportive. The other distractions that come up are things that might come up in your day, come up in your month that you weren't expecting. And that's why, number 2, you have to build and follow a routine. Plan your day, plan your week, plan your month. When you've built a routine that is linked to your goals, to your value-based goals, it becomes a lot easier for you to live intentional days. It becomes a lot harder for you to be distracted and becomes a lot easier for you to maintain consistency. If your norm is having a lie-in in the morning, dragging yourself into work, doing as little as possible, looking at the clock until lunchtime, and then getting ready to drag yourself back home, those traits will follow you into business because that's what your body is used to. And the more you do something is the easier it gets. They say it takes about 21 days to form a routine. If you build a proper daily routine and you follow your plan for the day, it will gradually become a lot easier because it will just become a way of life for you. Within building and following that routine, you also need to enforce and respect your own boundaries. Because as we spoke about in the first point, which was avoiding distractions, there are things that might creep into your day. So sometimes with the best will in the world and with the best plan in the world, there's going to be things that get thrown in. However, ensure that these aren't things that are just pushing your boundaries. And a lot of the times we think that other people have to respect our boundaries, but the respect starts with us. If you have a set plan and there's certain things that you want to do during the day and you have your routine, do not allow other people to infringe on those times, because if you aren't respecting your boundaries, then why on earth would they? And then the third thing that you really want to do within building that routine is journaling your journey. And the really good thing about journaling your journey and how every day is going is you get to see what works. You get to see what days work well. You get to see what routines work well. You get to see what doesn't work so well. You get to look at the days where, what happened on this day when I didn't get much done? What was happening for me that day? And it helps you as you go along and you review your week and review your month. Every month, it's really good to have a review of what went well, what didn't go so well, what have I achieved, what do I need to change, and review your quarters. And it really does help you to be consistent throughout the year, and you get to achieve more. And the third tip for staying consistent is know your why. I cannot bang on about this enough, but knowing your why is so important. You will remain focused, you will remain motivated if you keep your why to the forefront. And it isn't always easy to figure out what your why is. One of the things that I'm asked a lot is, how do you know what your why is? And I always say that when you think you found out what your why is, ask yourself why again, and do that about 2 or 3 times until you've really got something that doesn't just feel surface level. That doesn't mean that there's a right or wrong answer to your why, but it has to be something that's going to get you up in the morning. And many times it needs to be something outside of yourself as well. Sometimes we can be externally driven or we can be internally driven. However, when you have a firm why that might be linked to something external to you, that triggers the internal part of you to keep going after it and keeping you motivated and focused. Because if you do have these different responsibilities and varying priorities, what is going to keep you focused on the things that matter? It's going to be your why. And sharing that why with other people may also help to avoid some of the distractions that you might have with people who are asking you why. When you're very clear on your why, you believe in what you're doing, and then others can believe in you as well. If you don't believe in you, then who else can? So the bonus tip on remaining consistent and how do you get to do it all? The bonus tip is that most times you can't do it all. And I say that because sometimes we overestimate what we can do in a year and then underestimate what we can do in a month. I think there's a meme or something floating around about that. But there are so many things that we put upon ourselves and the pressure that we put upon ourselves to do certain things that we cannot always get it all done. But what we have to do is make sure that we prioritize properly, especially for the people that are working this and might be in a high pressure job and then are also multi-talented and have other skills and everything else that's attached to your bow. There are so many different things, so many different ideas that you might have in your head, and you really just want to get them all out all at once, but you can't. Sit down with a bit of paper and list everything that you want to do, even if it's, number that sheet of paper 1 to 100 and list all of the things that you really want to get done in a lifetime. Because many of the times what we do is we confuse our lifetime goals with our yearly goals. And because we've got all of this stuff floating around in our heads that we want to do, our lifetime goals, our yearly goals, our monthly goals, some of the quarterly things that we want to do, we put so much pressure because we just want everything done and we want everything done now. Prioritize what is important for you right now in this season. I am one of those people who are multi-talented, left brain, right brain. I use both of it. I'm creative and I'm also quite strict and regimented when it comes to my planning. However, there were some areas of my life, especially in the crafting and creative side, that I had to press pause on so that I can focus on the planning and moving forward, because my goal was to get out of my 9 to 5 before the end of 2024. And if I hadn't pressed pause on those other things that were competing in priority levels and responsibilities and tasks and things that I needed to do, there was absolutely no way that I could have done all of them. That isn't to say that I couldn't go and unpause and go back to those, but only when I'm certain that I'm in a position where I've done everything that needs to be done with this goal. Then I can move on to something else. Then I can start looking at the other list that have a lesser priority, but I'm still interested in. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves because we are good at so many different things, and people will come up to you and say, why aren't you doing this anymore? And why don't you do that? And you're really good at that. And that as well can place added pressure on us because we just think, okay, so why aren't I doing it? I am good at it. What does that say about me? Stay focused on what you're doing and prioritize, and make sure that you work along with what you prioritize. So I hope those 3 tips help you along your journey. And if you need any help when it comes to planning, look at my video about how I plan my quarters. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.